Thank you, Don. Thank you, niece. I took this picture in my yard a few days ago. Can anybody guess what that might be? So, well, Philip, it looks like you planted a stick. Well, believe it or not, that is a fig tree. 3 years ago, I planted a fig tree, and it really did very, very well. It grew, I don't know, about 2 feet tall or so, and it had a stalk filled with leaves, and it was just really fun. We love figs at our house, and I was looking forward to having our own figs. But one afternoon, I glanced out the window of our hearth room, and I didn't see it. So I walked outside to investigate, and there was just a little bitty stump, just kind of ragged. And it looked like to me that the mower had mowed over it, just decapitated that little tree. So I called the mower, the guy that does our yard, and I said, "Did you happen to remember a little tree with fig leaves on it?" He said, "Yeah, I was going a little bit too fast." And I said, "You think?" But the next year, to my surprise, that little fig tree went from here about 2 inches to about 4 feet tall. I was so thrilled. And the leaves began to grow back up and down that stalk. I put a sign next to it that said, "Slow fig tree growing." And the tree took off 4 to 5 feet, all leaves all along the stalk. And then one day I walked out to the backyard, and all these leaves were on the ground. I don't think bunny rabbits can climb trees. I don't know what happened. Maybe a deer got in there, but whatever it was, the leaves were all on the ground. I just had this empty stick. That poor little tree. First it was mowed over, and then it was eaten. And early this spring I looked out, and it was fighting. It was growing. It was working hard to do something. But a few weeks later, the few leaves that were on there were gone. So maybe a deer came back and helped himself. So I've got this dilemma. What do I do with this fig tree? Do I just pull it out and not even try? Or do I try to fertilize it? Do I try to build it back up? Do I try to help it grow? When I look at that little tree, I can't help but think of Charlie Brown's Christmas tree. As Linus says, I never thought it was such a bad little tree. It's not bad at all, really. Maybe it just needs a little love. I think that's what our fig tree needs. Maybe just a little love. So we all have a choice in our life when it comes to metaphorical fig trees. Are we going to pull it out of the ground, get rid of it, or are we going to nurture it and tend it to try to help it grow? Well, as John explained to us today, the focus of our teaching today is Eleanor. She is the primary character in the television show The Good Place, which we began, as John helped us understand, last week. Well, Eleanor, if you've ever watched the show, I will give you today a reminder. If you haven't watched the show, I'll give you spoiler alerts all day today. She is definitely one who would pull up that fig tree and get rid of it. I want us to see a little bit what Eleanor's life was like, what her behavior was like before she died while she was still living. You'll kind of get a glimpse of that in this clip. Take a look.
Tell me about the day before you died.
And it was after that she got hit by a bus. Just not a really pleasant person to be around, is she? Let's be honest, when Eleanor opens her eyes in The Good Place, she is as surprised as anyone that she is there. She knows she doesn't belong there. She was, by her own confession, a trash bag from Arizona. Her favorite book is Kendall Jenner's Instagram feed. She knows she's terrible, and she particularly does not even care. And she does not want to get better. And yet, here she is in The Good Place. where she is welcome that everything is fine, but it really is not. But being there in that place of death, Eleanor learns how to live a good life. It starts with self-awareness. Self-awareness is like suddenly switching from being the star of your own movie to watching it in a theater and going, oh no, why is he like that? From the very beginning, Eleanor is aware. She's self-aware. She's self-aware enough to know that she doesn't belong in the good place. And as the series goes on, Eleanor understands a lot of new things about herself. She goes back to her childhood, trying to understand the root of her bad behavior, and she mentions so many things in her life that she knows was wrong, that were inconsiderate, that were selfish. Regrets who she was and what she did. Dr. Emily Towns, who is the professor of religion and black studies at Boston University, the former dean of the School of Theology at Vanderbilt, said this: we must be committed to truth-telling, even when the truth tells us something we'd rather not hear about ourselves. Eleanor's journey began with self-awareness, with truth-telling. I don't belong here. I have not been a good person. I have not been kind. I have not been considerate. That journey that she takes is very similar to step 4 in the recovery program. Make a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. Now, sometimes other people like to take a moral inventory of us. Other people like to point out our particular faults and our mistakes and our inconsistencies. Lucy and Charlie Brown are together. This is at the first of the year, New Year's resolutions and everything. And Lucy says, now this afternoon, Charlie Brown, we're going to be looking at slides which deal with your many personality faults. Some of them are quite shocking. Take this one, for instance, and Charlie freaks out. Easy, easy, this is only the beginning. Being self-aware demands what we value at the venues, intellectual humility. It's one of our core values. Intellectual humility, as it relates to being aware of ourselves, is like holding up a mirror to our soul. It's a powerful tool that allows us to examine our thoughts and our feelings and our actions, but without judgment. The step 4, or just the process of being self-aware, isn't just about listing your shortcomings and your mistakes and being made to feel just terribly guilty and hopeless about those. Step 4, being self-aware, is about understanding who we are and what led us to seek help in the first place. Eleanor teaches us that being self-aware is a necessary step to take if we want to change and be transformed. Sometimes change and growth is hard. We get frustrated with other people. We get frustrated with ourselves. We find ourselves repeating the same behaviors that are so destructive to us and to others. And we want to just throw in the towel. Somebody said, James Brown said, consider how hard it is to change yourself, and you'll understand what little chance you have in trying to change others. So let's go back to my little fig tree in our yard. Should I give up on the fig tree? That is a good idea. Will you come over and do that? Will you? All right. I'll be home tomorrow. Jesus tells a story about a fig tree. A man had a fig tree planted in his vineyard, and he came looking for fruit on it and found none. So he said to the man working in the vineyard, see here, for 3 years I have come looking for fruit on this fig tree, and still I find none. Cut it down. Why should it be wasting the soil? He replied, Sir, let it alone for 1 more year until I dig around it and put manure on it. If you read some versions, they'll just say fertilize it. But the Greek word really is manure. It wasn't in this particular version, but I changed it. If it bears fruit next year, well and good. But if not, you can cut it down. So this guy has a fig tree. He's had it for 3 years, about the same time I've had my fig tree. But there were no figs, just leaves. At least he had leaves. He ought to be happy about that. And the guy is frustrated, understandably so. And so he tells his gardener, just cut it down. I'm tired of it. It's wasting space. It's wasting the nutrients from the soil. I need to plant something that'll grow. But then comes the gardener. The gardener is the one who tends. The gardener is the one who sees possibility when everybody else just sees a waste. And the gardener says, just give it 1 more year. He uses an interesting phrase here. If you see it up there, let it alone. Where is that phrase, let it alone? Third line from, yes, thank you. Right there, let it alone. That phrase, let it alone, is the very same word that we read in Luke chapter 11:4. You recognize it? Part of the Lord's Prayer, and forgive us our sins as we forgive those who sin against us. Let it alone is the same Greek word as forgive. This is not just about agriculture, is it? It's about mercy. It's about grace. It's about giving someone the space to change and to grow. The gardener is literally asking for the owner to forgive the fig tree for not growing, asking the owner for time. Let me feed it. Let me take care of it. The gardener shows the grace. So who are you in this story? Are you the owner? Do you have a tendency to give up on people, to throw people away? Do you have a tendency to give up on yourself? You get so frustrated with who you are, what you're doing, that you just say, I will never change. Giving up on people and taking care of ourselves can be a very tough balance. But I do want us to remember, it's okay to love someone from a distance. You can still care about a person and recognize that being close to that person just is not healthy. Sometimes loving from afar is the kindest thing you can do for yourself, and it could be the best thing you do for that other person. So maybe you're the owner. Maybe you find yourself in a situation where you just want to give up on someone. Or maybe you're the gardener in the story. You're the one who sees potentials when everybody else sees failures. And you're being asked, don't give up, not yet. You're being asked not to give up on the people that frustrate you, on the people who have really done harm to you and to others. And I want us to understand that a healthy spirituality does not ignore or excuse injustice. And if you hear me asking you to be a gardener to someone who is hurting you and hurting others, I'm not asking any of us to excuse or rationalize their offensive behavior. And healthy spirituality does not excuse it or justify it. But what I'm trying to embrace and trying to understand, especially from this story, is that I think healthy spirituality invites us to believe that even the most barren fig tree can bloom. Being the gardener does not mean letting people hurt you, or it does mean that you're holding on to hope. It does mean that you believe that transformation is possible. Now, we think of people in government, we think of people in leadership who are beyond, we think, hope. beyond change, beyond transformation. And I think we're all thinking of the same person. And the things that are done and the values that are expressed are, to me, frustrating. They're sad. They're the antithesis of what I understand Christ to be and Christianity to be. But I want to look at that individual as a fig tree. And I want to look at that individual with hope, knowing that if somebody in their life can step in and be a gardener and cultivate so that individual will bloom and bear fruit. Sarah Bessey, one of my favorite authors, says we need to become brave because God is at work restoring all things. Okay, I think she's right. So even the people that are so offensive are a part of the all things and redeeming all things and resurrecting. And I want to be in on that. I don't want to miss it because I was afraid. Oh, pardon me? Yeah, Dr. Sherry, I think, said that. She's always been such a compassionate in her bedside manner. I think you're exactly right. Yeah, he's already full of shit in some ways, but a little intentional manure is a good thing. I really should not have said that. Those are not the words of a gardener. But it does take bravery, as Sarah Bessey says. I want to show you another scene in which Eleanor meets her mom's new boyfriend. And in this scene, I sense such pain and such hurt in Eleanor's life. And I really do believe that a lot of bad behavior is the outgrowth, is the fruit of a painful experience. And I think we can see this in Eleanor's life. Take a look. You kind of understand maybe why she was not a very kind person. There's a lot of hurt. And as we know, hurt people hurt people. Theologian and clinical psychologist Dr. Shanagwa Walker Barnes says, love requires us to see people as they are, not as we want them to be, and to extend grace accordingly. Doggone it, that's hard, isn't it? To extend grace accordingly. Eleanor had some gardeners in her life, people who came around her when she was selfish and shallow, fruitless, and they dig around her soul. They put fertilizer into her life of kindness and truth-telling. They water her with goodness, and she begins to grow. We need self-awareness, but we also need gardeners in our life. Susan Burton lost her 5-year-old son to a police shooting, and it was devastating to her, and she spiraled after her son was killed into addiction, in which she served several prison terms. But finally, after one of her releases, she got sober, she got a new start, and she founded an organization called A New Way of Life, which is a re-entry program for formerly incarcerated women. Her story, like so many stories, began with a deep wound. And out of that deep wound, she made some bad choices, repeatedly making bad choices, repeated mistakes. But then she got a new start. There were gardeners in her life. And she began a national movement of healing and justice. Susan says this, I was seen as disposable, But someone believed in me, and that was enough to believe in myself. I did not ask Shelley for permission to say this. It's easier to ask forgiveness and permission. But before the service this morning, she showed me a text of a friend of hers. The friend of hers died by suicide recently. And Shelley had poured her life into this unsheltered person's soul. She was a gardener for that person. And this person's girlfriend texted Shelley to thank her for loving that man and for investing in that man, saying that it made a difference in that man's life. And sometimes the pain is so overwhelming that the decision is made just to go to the next place. We don't condemn, we don't blame, we are just sad. But we're glad for people like Shelley, who was to that person a gardener. And all of you are gardeners to other people. One of our values at the venues is to be affirming and inclusive. And I want us to ask ourselves a question: what does it mean in relationship to this big story and into Eleanor's story? Maybe it means for me, and I invite you to consider it too, does it mean I need to ask myself the question, who are the barren fig trees in my life? Maybe it's a difficult family member. Maybe it's a struggling colleague. And let's be honest, maybe it's myself. Maybe I'm the barren fig that is struggling. So what would it look like for us to tend to that person rather than condemn that person? What would it look like for us to fertilize that person with truth-telling, yes, but with kindness and with hope instead of with judgment? Maybe you're the gardener, maybe you're the owner, but maybe you're the fig tree today. You feel hopeless. People have looked at you and said, you're too far gone. Let's just pull it out, cut it off. I want us to remember that a person who deserves more love and affection than one's own self in any place or anywhere cannot be found. That's from a Buddhist monk. A person who deserves more love and affection than you cannot be found. Give yourself, be a gardener to yourself. Jesus doesn't tell us what happened to the fig tree. It's an unresolved story. Maybe he left it unresolved intentionally. Maybe he said, all right, the shovel is in your hand. You've got a choice to dig up the fig tree and throw it away, or to dig around the fig tree and put some kindness and truth and love around it. So whether you feel like the tired fig tree or the owner, I think all of us hear Jesus calling us to be a gardener, to not give up on others, maybe more importantly, not give up on yourself. Because with one more year, that stick that's in my yard may produce some leaves, may produce some fruit, and maybe next year I'll hold in my hand a fig that I don't get from Mama Jean's, but I get from my own backyard. Yeah.